for people to start seeing that we're live and join us on our broadcast today. Great. And while that's pulling up, I just wanted to welcome you all onto our radio segment on Fridays at 1 p.m. here Mountain Time. We're streaming live on KUHS at Denver. I am your host, Juliet Abdel, and this segment is branded as a self-care boss, aka me, and I've gone in detail over why I've given myself that title, so I won't belabor that too much. But I always like to start every week by sharing with folks a little bit about my week. It's kind of one of those when you're going through it or when you have a great success, you want to share it because you feel like others are also experiencing something similar. And since this segment is always around health and wellness, our guests are either here and they cross over on both sides. They might be business owners, they may be professionals in the health industry. They may be folks that are just interested in health and wellness and have incorporated it in their everyday lives. And one of the things that I have been facing over the last 3 weeks now is just this severe nausea every day. I'm like waking up with this throughout my day. I'm going through it, and then I go to bed with it, and it is not a great feeling. And one of the things I noticed when I finally got into the third doctor visit that I had this week, as I was explaining how long I had been going through this, I was like, it's been 3 weeks now. And I thought back on that when I left, and I was like, it took me 3 weeks to get my butt inside of a doctor's office, right, to get this checked out. And I like to say that I'm always on top of when something feels off or when there's any changes to myself personally. And if I've taken that long to do that, then I know a lot of you are putting off going to get your checkups routinely or checking things out if you're not feeling well. So this is your encouragement to not put off those appointments that you should be having. If you're not feeling well, get it checked out. You know your body more than anyone else does. And so take that time to make sure that you are being well so that you can take care of other people. Now, my guest is with us here virtually today, Latresa Dolman, and her and I met together, I want to say it's been about 2 years at least, maybe 3, virtually. So welcome onto our segment today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Well, you wear so many hats, and we have crossed paths primarily because of our self-care interest, love, and then pageantry. But I want to give you a second to highlight some of those different things that you do on a daily basis. And you do quite a bit of things. So if you want to give big picture and then we'll focus in on each of them individually, we can do that as well.
Yes, so I do, like you said, a lot of different things. I run 2 nonprofit organizations. One is Making a Better Me, which helps with our youth. The other is Go Great for a Cure, to help find a cure for brain cancer, specifically glioblastoma. I have a candle and cosmetic company, that's El Shimon Candles and Cosmetics. I do pageantry, but I've also been an athlete pretty much my whole life. And I love working out, and I know that it's so important to take care of our bodies and our physical fitness. Health is truly the most important thing that we can have. And then also self-care, taking care of oneself so that you can actually, like you said, help take care of others and just be great to yourself. So I love that you have this show, and I love all of the things that you do.
Well, likewise, right back at you, and I was so very impressed. So for those of you that don't know, I am 5'3" and barely a quarter. Latresa is 6'2", and she is a beautiful, tall woman. And so I am like pictured beside her, and one I'm over here like inching on my heels and everything. But it's, I was so happy to get to meet her in person because the way that she is outside of her social media platform, outside of the photos, is truly what is in those images and what's online, and she lives it and breathes it on a daily basis, and it's so inspiring to see someone that is putting out there who they actually are. So you touched on the numerous hats that you're wearing, and I want to just jump right into each of those, if that's okay. You shared with us a little bit about Go Great for a Cure, and I know that this is like a really close to your heart type of organization that you founded. Can we give people an idea on what you all do, why it was created, and ways that they can plug into that?
Sure. So I love that you want to talk about this one first, because this one, like you said, is so near and dear to my heart. The reason that I started Go Great for a Cure is because my beloved husband, Chris Dolman, who's a Pro Football Hall of Famer, 2-year brain cancer survivor, he always wanted people to know that he was proud of being a brain cancer survivor. And unfortunately, he passed away from glioblastoma in 2020. And even when he was alive, we both were working to help others that was going through what we were going through, to be a blessing to them. And we were also hoping that we could find a cure. Unfortunately, that did not happen while he was alive. And so I am continuing my husband's fight, and I do so many things to help raise money and help find a cure, which we need to also raise awareness and just to let other people know about signs, warning symptoms. And it just made sense to start another nonprofit organization. I already had my other one, but I needed to be a business, and I did not want to gain money from it. So that's the reason I created Go Great for a Cure. We are doing a lot of things to raise awareness in the community. We're putting on a 5K walk and just so many different things to bring out people, raise awareness, honor those that we have lost, honor those who are fighting and surviving. But the main reason that we exist is to find a cure.
I absolutely love that, and I love all those outreach activities you're doing, and that people can engage with you without physically being there. I know one of the ways that I was able to try and support is a virtual walk that you had, or wearing the gray around that month to try and raise awareness. And those are small things that you don't really think about, but it's one of those, as we started this broadcast, it's things that we know we should be doing or things we should be aware of, but we're just inundated with so much in a day that we're distracted from it all. And so that constant reminder that there are these great people like you that are supporting families experiencing this, but are also out there trying to increase and move the needle on finding a cure, finding some sort of a way to help them out. So thank you for sharing your experience and everything around Go Great for a Cure. You also shared that you had created this as a nonprofit secondary after your first nonprofit. So let's talk about why you chose to become a nonprofit owner and what that process looked like in that first nonprofit.
Sure, and I first would like to say thank you so much for all of your support, because you do support everything that I do, and I appreciate you more than words. And the reason that I first started a nonprofit organization in the first place is just because sports has been a big part of my life, and I know that I was afforded many opportunities that many other children and young youth are not afforded. I was able to go to private school, and I was able to play sports for my school teams, as well as AAU basketball and AAU volleyball. And I know so many other children do not get that opportunity. So I knew when I was in college that one day I wanted to start a nonprofit organization that would help fund those fees for the kids that weren't able to, but they have the talent and also they have the grades. I think too many of our extracurricular activities are being taken away from our youth, and our youth needs something. They need an outlet. They need some type of fun, something that they can focus on. But it does mean a lot that they are a student athlete. They have to make the grades first. And so with Making a Better Me Incorporated, we do so many things. We have a summer reading program because reading is fundamental. I've always been a bookworm, love reading. We have a code camp where we teach kids how to code for free. Okay. And we are actually expanding to do some things in Canton, Ohio with that program as well. And we're just looking to help. The ultimate goal is to get our youth in college and also to have them use their education to get them there, where hopefully they do not have to pay. There's many scholarships out there. But we want them overall just to be happy and just be the best version of themselves that they can be. And statistics prove that when children do extracurricular activities, they're out of trouble a lot. Their grades are higher because they're focusing on managing their time better, and there's just so many positives to playing sports. So that's the reason that I started Making a Better Me Incorporated.
Absolutely, and it is similar to habit stacking, right? Like instead of a bad habit that you have, you're replacing it with something good. And in their instance, they're replacing what they would have been filling their time doing with something that's way more productive and influential, both mentally, physically, and even spiritually. So how long ago was that nonprofit formed?
I started Making a Better Me, and we got incorporated in 2014.
Okay. So going on almost 10 years by next year, which is so exciting, and I'm sure it just feels like it was yesterday that you that you went through that process.
Does.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So what were some of the? Did you have a guidebook or a mentor or some support to getting started in the nonprofit industry, or does it go back to your interest in learning and finding those things out on your own and kind of walking through that checklist?
Well, the first thing that I did was I hired an attorney for my first nonprofit organization because I did not have a lot of the knowledge that I have now. And Google was being used, but not really as much as it's being used now, where there's so many tools available at our fingertips if we just search the web. And I hired an attorney, paid her a lot of money. Sparkle likes getting on my Zooms. Hey, happy Sparkle. And so she was very helpful with a lot of things, and I also did research. And so when I did my second nonprofit organization, I actually did all of the paperwork myself. I was going to hire an attorney to do it again, and so many people kept saying, my friends and the people that knew that I was doing it kept saying, you can do it yourself, you should do it. And I said, no, I make sure it's done right. And everybody kept saying, you can do it yourself. And so I feel like God just kept sending confirmation, and I did it myself. And we are also, both of my nonprofit organizations are 501c3s, and we are public, and it's wonderful. But yes, I will say that the first time I did hire an attorney because I didn't have that knowledge and I wanted things done the right way.
And it's okay to ask for that help and that assistance in getting started. I think sometimes, especially when we're thinking of going out on our own, right, and starting up something, we always have this obstacle that's out there where whether it's reinforced by the people that are around you that are kind of a little bit more negative than they should be, or your own personal obstacles that you've created yourself. And so having someone from external provide that guidance and direction can be very supportive. And to your credit, you not only went through that, then you learned through that process and knew how to prepare and start this next one back up on your own. And you started that during COVID. So that had to have been another interesting dynamic, trying to operate a nonprofit when and fundraising and requesting support when people are being laid off or were unemployed. So what were some ways that you tried to reshape or retool during that time so you can still grow and establish your presence?
The main thing that I did, I first would like to say that I prayed to God for everything. God even gave me the name, and everything was just working out. And I wanted to start a bracelet fundraiser just because I know that I wear my Go Grade bracelets every day. And I was looking for a bracelet to wear in memory of my husband. And when I was looking, searching, I couldn't find what I had envisioned I wanted to wear on my arm. And so I thought, well, I'll make a bracelet. I'm creative. And so the first thing that we did was our Go Grade for a Cure bracelet fundraiser, where we have these bracelets for women. I also make bracelets for men with the lava beads, and we have the light gray and the dark gray. And it was actually a huge success. So that was the first fundraiser that we did. And it turned out that there were a lot of other people out there like me that wanted a bracelet or was looking for some way to honor someone that they lost or someone who's fighting, and they did not see the options that actually fit with what they would like to wear. So that was a big fundraiser that we did starting out, and I knew also that I wanted to do a 5K every year. So the first year we did virtual, which you participated in, because we did not want to do in person with COVID. And this year is our second annual, and so we're actually doing it in person and virtual because so many people kept saying, make sure you keep the virtual option,
Yes.
and then we're going to have an in-person option as well. And I think that we'll get a lot of people out because a lot of people like it. And the thing I really love about 5Ks is that you're walking or you're running for a cause, but you're also getting that exercise in. It's also social. We're going to have a DJ out there. It's just a great time. I've done so many 5Ks for breast cancer awareness, Alzheimer's. I mean, so many different things. And when you're out walking for a great cause and having a good time, I think there's no better way.
Absolutely.
You're killing two birds with one stone.
Yes, and you're creating that sense of community for them, right? And so they know that not only are they supportive of the organization and its mission, but they're getting involved together and really shaping that. And that speaks to one other comment that I wanted to parlay into our conversation, which is your volunteerism and everything that you do in the community outside of even your two nonprofits. So for those of you that are tuned in with us, we're on KUHS Denver. I've got with me Latrice Dolman, who's giving us a nice overview of some of the things that she has been involved in creating and shaping and in really moving her community forward. We've touched on her two nonprofits, and now we're moving into her volunteerism. And tell me how you manage to do all that you're doing, because I often see you speaking at different events. You're at various rallies, you're tabling, you're doing drives. So let's talk about the time commitment that you've put into volunteering first.
It's funny that you say that. I really do. And when I tell people most of the things that I do, I really don't tell everything that I do. People are just like, when do you sleep? So the thing that I always say, and I truly do live my life knowing that I am blessed to be a blessing to others. That is how I live my life in everything that I do. And every day I try to bless as many people as I possibly can. And so I know that I do a lot because I sit on a lot of boards. I volunteer money. I mean, I help out with time. But giving back to me is actually, it makes me happy. It's how I get through. And so even though, like, there's been times where I've done multiple events in one day, and it just brings me joy, especially with losing my husband, which I was giving back many, many years before I even met him. I've been giving back since I was a young girl, before I knew what giving back was. I just knew that I wanted to help people. And I would ask my mother, when I would see people in Detroit and it was cold and they didn't have on coats, and I would ask my mother, can I give them some of my coats? So I've always wanted to give back, even before I knew what giving back was, and it's just been my life. It's actually how I met my husband. He also had a great heart for giving back, and it brought us together even closer when we first started dating, because we do love giving back to other people. And I feel that I make time for the things that matter to me. So regardless of how busy my schedule is, I will do something to help others because it will bring joy to my heart. And ultimately, my goal is to bless as many as I can. And if I can bless someone else, then it's a great day.
Absolutely. And you shared, there are 3 points that you made out of this that I want to highlight. And one of those is that feeling of happiness and fulfillment, right? And that is a huge part of volunteering and giving back. And there have been numerous surveys. For those of you that are tuned in and had no idea about this, there have been surveys done that actually try and measure what happiness truly feels like, and when in our lives we feel most happy, and it is when we're giving back and when we're volunteering. So it's entirely different than what we think of when we think of wealth and, you know, buying the things that we want or the necessities. It really is helping someone else and having that humbleness behind it. The second piece that you shared that's also very important for people to have picked up, and hopefully they did. I don't need to give dating advice because I'm clearly not in that place too, but but one of the things that they always emphasize is that when you are growing together, when you are serving together with someone, not only is it a personal fulfillment in your relationship, but you strengthen and deepen your relationship because you're going through that process together of lifting other people up. So unbeknownst to probably both of you at the time, you and your husband, you were building a stronger foundation. And that's why even until this day, I can feel that intensity of your relationship and the love that you all had through those posts and the outreach that you're doing. And then the third piece, which is the blessing, right? Like, I think we all go through life and we have this idea when we have something bad happen, right? And it's something terrible has happened to me, and why did, God must not love me, or whoever else you would like to replace that with, right? For us, I know it's God, right? And so God has chosen me to give something terrible. Well, that's not really why He's doing that, right? And understanding the why behind it is so important to knowing that you're here and you've survived past that person that you've lost, or as a survivor yourself, to reshape it for someone else. So I love all those points that you highlighted and led to in your volunteer work. But you also started down this pageantry journey. And how long have you been competing? Was it your first time competing, and then out of the park you won the international title that you had? So let's backtrack what your pageant journey was, and then we'll move into that title and the things that you did through that as well.
Okay, well, I started my first pageant when I was in college. The Alphas asked me to be in their Miss Black and Gold beauty pageant, and at first I told them no, because I used to be the most shyest person and just quiet. I did not like speaking in front of people and so many different things. And they kept saying, you really should do it, you really should do it. So I said, okay. The first pageant, I did not place. I did well until it was the speaking parts, but I knew that I can do better. And I came back and I did it again. And then I got second runner-up, which I was very happy with because of my progression. And then I did the Miss Georgia United States pageant in 2015. I placed first runner-up. I did Miss America in 2016. I made the top 12. That was my first national pageant. And then I was supposed to compete in 2018, but that's when my husband was diagnosed with brain cancer, so I dropped out of the pageant. And I competed in 2019, and that's when I won the title that I was going for. So I was very excited and only have done 5 beauty pageants.
Yeah, and that's not too many. I mean, sometimes people have been in, and last week we had one of our guests with us, our Miss Universal Petite, right? And she has been competing for, I think it was 20 years is what we were at, 19 or 20 years that we were at with her sharing that. So there are some people that have done it for years, and then there are others that are relatively new into it. And as soon as you said that Alpha Phi, I knew what pageant you were talking about, because I remember seeing all those signs that they did for their pageant systems. And you weren't discouraged. You instead kind of you took and accepted where you placed, and then you kept focusing on ways that you can improve yourself. And what kept you going?
I'm the type of person, I follow my dreams, and if I don't do something well, I know I can do better, and I'm the type that will work harder and come back and accomplish my goal. The ultimate goal is to accomplish my goals, and I just felt that I could do better. I knew that in the first year when I did the Miss America pageant, and when I was walking away from answering my question and answer, I knew right then and there that I wasn't going to win. I didn't give a good enough answer. It was a decent answer, but it wasn't good enough to win the crown. And I decided after that pageant that I was coming back. I was going to work on my skills, and I actually hired a trainer, a coach, and I came back, and I think that it was a great decision because the first year that I placed in the top 12, I didn't hire a coach. I did everything myself. So I prepared, and I did better, and I accomplished my goal.
Absolutely. And then some more as well, because you were crowned and then COVID happened, and for a while they weren't hosting the pageant nationally, so you kept your title for a total of 3 years that you held on to that?
3 years.
Which is significant. So how did you stay energized for 3 years, right? Because we go into it and sometimes you have this commitment, you're committing to a year, but instead you walked into a year and then it was extended a lot more. So what was that like when it was, okay, now you're holding on to more?
So for me, it actually turned out to be a blessing because I lost my husband in 2020, and when I tell you I could not function, I could not eat, I could not sleep, I was a hot mess. And I will say that the two things that got me out of the bed so that I was not just lying in bed crying all day was my dog Sparkle, which you see behind me, because I had to get up and feed her and walk her, and the fact that I had a crown and I had a job to do to be a blessing to other people. When my husband first passed, I did not do anything with the crown for a couple of months because I was still just trying to process what taken place. But then I started doing virtual Zooms because our youth were going through so many issues being out of school. And I felt that it was important for me to do my part. So I would start doing a lot of Zoom calls with students in Texas, Minnesota, just visiting a lot of classes virtually. And then I also put on a motivational Zoom where they could Zoom in with me and I would give motivation and we would just talk about different things to help them with their healing. So I would encourage them, hey, have you tried reading a book? Maybe try coloring, just trying to offer up different things that will help uplift their spirits because they were just going through so much. So this crown being extended really was a blessing to me, and I feel that it was exactly what I needed in that time to help me get through what I was going through.
Which is so beautiful, because one of the things that we often hear, especially when you're competing, is, you know, different day, different judges. I have a different perspective, right? If it's God's will, it is God's will, God's timing. If you're meant to have it, it doesn't matter who's the one that is listening to you or viewing you on stage, etc. And he knew in that timing that's when you needed it most, right? And you highlighted a couple of things here. And that was the drive to move from a place of negativity. And we all sometimes fall into our mental health can kind of compromise us, and our emotions can compromise us almost to the point where we can't move. And so the way that you were able to overcome that, thank you for sharing it, was having this greater sense of purpose, having this accountability, whether or not you knew at the time that it was going to be your anchor to push you out of the funk that you were in. And then the second thing that you highlighted, and that's your little furry friend that is in the back, is huge. When we talk about health and all things wellness, pets are known to be stress reducers, anxiety relievers. They are in tune with us. And, you know, this whole, I'm sure you've heard that they look like us, they reflect us and mimic us, because it's true. They are mirroring the environment that they're in, and they know when there's something that's off with you. And so that's another great way if you are facing a personal challenge or feeling not like yourself. You know, pets are there and are therapeutic in that sense as well. That takes us to the next point of our conversation, because we're talking about how some of these things that you've done as a title holder and as a pet parent fill in the cup of self-care. And you started up a company very recently and highlighted it briefly. Let's go in detail about your company with those viewers and listeners with us.
Sure. I have a candle called El Shimon, and we have candles and cosmetics. I started it in 2019, and this company has just really expanded into so many other things. Originally, I wanted to have candles. I wanted to have lip glosses, lipsticks, perfumes, things of that nature. But then I started thinking, because one thing about me, I'm always thinking of how can I give back, how can I help others? And I wanted to have spa boxes because I knew as myself, being a caregiver to my husband, that people always say when you're a caregiver, you have to take care of yourself, you have to take care of yourself. And I would always say, yes, I know. But honestly, I really didn't, because I was going to be okay if my husband was okay. If he wasn't okay, then I wasn't okay. So I would not do things for myself because everything was about my husband. He's my world, and I know I still speak of him in the present sense because he still is my world, and I am still in love with him. But if he was okay, then I was okay. But then I started thinking, well, if I had bath bombs or bath salts, I could have taken a bubble bath or a spa bath while he was taking a nap, and I could have done things at home to help relax myself, which I did not do. So I came up with products that we have spa boxes. We are going to start our giveaways where every month we are going to have people enter in emails and send us emails, and we are going to pick a caregiver and give them a spa box every month. So that's one of the things that we're going to do to give back. But I love candles since I was in college. I actually never go without having candles. First thing I do when I come in is light a candle. It just smells so good. And I always felt that candles uplift your mood. Sometimes you turn off the lights and just have the candlelight and just looking at it. And so I wanted to start a candle and cosmetic company when I was in college. That was one of my long-term goals. And finally, in 2019, I did that.
Absolutely. Well, congrats again on starting up another dream that you had and really bringing it to reality. And again, you touched on the scent component and that sense of smell, right? Like you're really activating all those senses, and that's where it helps with healing. But it's not uncommon for people to be in the space that you were in. As caregivers, I think what we currently have is nearly 40% of all adults will become caregivers in our lives. So that's a huge percentage of people that have to care, whether it's for a spouse, a friend, a family member, someone in their life. But the majority of those caregivers are women. And as women, we have such a sense of duty and such a sense of almost a regret for taking the time for us instead of applying it to the person that we're caring for. And I know you had that, right? You just shared a lot of that. Like you wanted to be there with them at all times, that you were not including some of those small things that you can be doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, I definitely did. And I was just blessed where my husband, he always thought about me. And he would always say, oh, you should go get a pedicure or do this. And I would say, yeah, no. So then he would say, well, let's go get a pedicure. So that's one of the things that we would do. We would go together and get pedicures and manicures. And I always felt like he was doing that so that I could get it. Because he never told me to go on my own. I wasn't going to.
Oh, that's
but
awesome.
I was just blessed to have a loving husband that always thought about me and my well-being and wanted to make sure that I was taken care of as well.
That is probably one of the sweetest things I've ever heard. So thank you, thank you for sharing that. That's too sweet. And it is sometimes you need that push from those people that you're caring for, or from those people surrounding you. So I know when I started, I was sharing about 3 weeks later. Here I am at a doctor's office, and I can tell you, my good friend pushed me to do that. That was not I woke up on the third, on the day after 3 weeks, I was like, let me go. No, it was pressure, right? Like you need those pressure people that force you to do the things, and it comes with being a strong-willed, independent woman. I feel like, right? Like we know how to do the things that we do, and we don't want to stop until we get all those things achieved. So, are you still involved in athletics? How has that world been shaped for you over the course of not only the pageant time frame that you've had as being a caregiver and as being a nonprofit owner as well?
Well, that is a great question. I'm happy that you asked. I did step away from everything when I was taking care of my husband. I literally dropped everything. And I have decided recently that I am going to start back playing volleyball. I did start back golfing last year, even though I did a couple of tournaments in 2021 that I was invited to. I was the golf ambassador for Women of Color Golf in Tampa, Florida for their inaugural tournament. And I love golfing. My husband and I, that's what we used to do. Every day we would golf. We would go to the range every day, and that was our thing. So at first it was really tough to golf without my husband being there, and it was so emotional. But I also know that my husband would be looking down at me saying, what are you doing? You're going to forget everything that I taught you. You need to get out there and golf. And so I did decide last year that I'm going to start golfing more, and I did start golfing more last year because I do love the game of golf. And I'm also going to start back playing volleyball. So those are the two things that I will continue to do, and I'm really huge on growing the game of golf for women, and that's one of the things that my husband and I were focused on. And so I'm also going to continue our mission with that and getting more women into golf and more minority women as well.
Yes, those are two ambitious goals that you have, and hobbies are a big part of the self-care process, actually doing things that bring you happiness. And in a way, as you were sharing, right, it's like you want to keep everything that you taught you, but it's also you're reliving that every time you're going out there. You're breathing life life into that memory and keeping it strong in the process. So let's dissect a little bit more about women in golf, especially women of color being in golf or minority women. What do you feel has been the biggest apprehension to women getting on golf courses?
I would say that the first thing is just there's not really a lot of opportunities for minority women because of how much it costs. A lot of people can't afford to get some golf clubs or to pay the fees to join a golf club and be able to go out and golf. It does cost a lot of money. So I think that that's the number one barrier. And a lot of times you don't see where golf is introduced in a lot of minority communities. You mainly see basketball, volleyball, track. And so I think if more youth learn about golf and hear about golf, then they'll be able to participate. And so that's one of the things that I'm looking to do now is to start going around putting on different golf tournaments or just golf events that introduces our young girls to golf. And if it's something that they want to continue, that is one of the things that Making It Better Me will be able to do is sponsor a couple of golfers each year so that they actually can do that.
Yeah, I love that, and I think you answered that incredibly well. I know you didn't expect me to throw this that question your way, but it's so accurate. That has not been something that's introduced, right? Like growing up, that's not really one of those in the cards choice-wise, and a lot of times, especially with those, I say like those more high sought-after sports, right? Like you invest what you'll get out of it, and you can't go cheap and buy whatever second-hand item that you can find and expect to use it. And so it deters people, and it even does in the pageant industry, right? That is a thousands of dollars that you're putting into, and you can be at a disadvantage when you're competing, coming from a position of no wealth or from limited resources that are there.
That is true, and that's another point where you do not see as many minority women competing because of how much it costs for pageantry, and it's hard for them to get sponsors, and so we see that a lot of them are not competing, but I'm starting to see more, which I think is wonderful, because I think that every woman and every girl, I would say teen, in my opinion, I always think should do at least one pageant because it will change your life.
Totally.
And if they don't have the opportunities to do that and just to see this wonderful world and to meet wonderful sisters for life, and to learn, for those that aren't aware, just about giving back to your community. That's the main thing that I love about pageants, is that in every pageant system, you have to give back to your community and you have to find a cause that you're going to represent. And I think that what better way to bring sisters together to uplift them and their self-esteem, but to give back doing so.
Incredibly said. Thank you so much for that. I couldn't agree more with you. I do think everyone should do at least one and get their perspective changed, but get themselves really to understand themselves a little bit more along the way. We have been straight talking for a solid few minutes, and I want to turn this over to you to see if there was anything that you wanted to highlight in particular, or an area that I did not ask you questions about that you were hoping to talk a little bit more about with our listeners or viewers before I move into some ways that they can find you online and things like that.
Well, sure. I love everything that you have asked me. Yeah. I do just want to say, for all of my fellow tall women or girls out there, as it was said, I am 6'2.5", and I have been this height since the age of 13. And there have been so many things in my life that people told me that I could not do because I was too tall. I've heard constantly that I was too tall. Oh, you're too tall, you're too tall, you're too tall. And whenever someone tells me that, I say, no, I'm not. I'm the perfect height, because I'm the perfect height for me. And with that being said, I did start an organization called Tall Girls Rock, because I want to promote how proud I am of being tall. I wear 3.5-inch, 4-inch heels every day because I love being tall. And we are going to start, now that COVID is starting to go away, we are going to start our tour where we will go around and do Tall Girls Rock conferences to help uplift the self-esteem in tall girls, because I see so many tall girls slouching and they all say they wish they were short. And I want them to be proud to be tall. I want them to say, hey, tall girls rock. Yeah. And so that's something that I started that I feel is important, because I want all tall girls to love their height and know that God made you the way that you are, and you are perfect the way that you are, and you are not too tall. You are the perfect height.
Oh, I love the message behind that, and I love the way that you answer that, and that is, I'm perfect as I am, because this is how I've been meant to be. And you know, it is funny. I did not plan it like this, but last week when we had Catherine on with us, she was talking about being very petite, and that's why she had to, you know, she felt like finding the petite system was very supportive and inclusive for her, because as a short woman, it was hard for her to feel like, you know, she's on stage with these taller women. And so it's one of those things that shows you that sometimes our perspective, right, is so different from another person's perspective.
Yeah.
And and there's no right or wrong. Like, you embrace the way that you are, and you own that place, and no one has the authority or the right to tell you that you are too tall or too short to be able to compete in either athletically, in pageants, in life, or in any position that you seek. But I do love that you started up this Tall Girls Rock movement, and I'll be excited to see that go national.
Thank you. Yes, and I agree. I hate when I see even short girls with volleyball. We know that volleyball is a game for tall women. People say basketball too, but a lot of point guards are not tall. So, but I hate when I was coaching volleyball, and even when I see volleyball players and coaches tell them, oh, well, you can't make this team because you're not this height. That bothers me. Or when coaches tell players, well, you can't go to this Division I school because you're not tall enough. You can't say what they can't do. So I always encourage, so if you're short and you're listening to me, don't let anybody tell you what you can't do. Yes, you can play volleyball. Yes, you can play basketball. The question is, are you willing to put in the work to get to where you need to be in order to play at those Division I schools where most of the girls are my height or taller? But you can do it. You just will have to work really, really hard and work on your jumping and make sure that you play great defense and that you play taller than you are. Yeah. So don't let anybody discourage you, and that goes for anyone. It doesn't matter how tall you are.
I love that, and I love all of these messages that you've been sharing and feeding with our listeners and our viewers. For those of them that are tuned in, that are wondering how they can follow either your nonprofits, you personally, or engage, I know you've got a string of social medias, so let's give it to them. Let's give those to them, and then I will come back and we'll hopefully post these in our video as well, so they can try and find those if they didn't catch it through us telling them verbally.
Thank you. Well, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find me at Purple Diva 13. And I still have Ms. America International 2022. Our Go Great for a Cure, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is Go Great for a Cure. And Making a Better Me is Making a Better Me Incorporated. And Tall Girls Rock is Tall Girls Rock. And El Shimon is El Shimon on all social media.
So
I do have to say, I have to start doing more with posting. I'm working on that to where I can set it up and post, because as you mentioned, I have a lot of pages to post on, so I'm working on getting better. Yeah. So we are active on all of them.
Well, and it's harder because each of the different causes that you have and the different businesses that you run are different, right? They have a different mission and a different purpose, and you're doing so many different activities for each one that you can't just blanket post out, you know, here's a quote and push it on all 5 channels, right? Like, that's, you have to be more customized, which does take time. And as I think most listeners and viewers will understand and have grace and understanding, that it is a one-person operation, as she's the founder and operator of a lot of these nonprofits and projects that she has going on for her. So I do have to ask, the Purple Diva, where did that come in? Is purple your favorite color? Is there, was it self-appointed?
The funny thing is, purple has been my favorite color since I was in the first grade. A lot of people think that I started liking purple after I met my husband because it was also his favorite color, and he played with the Minnesota Vikings and they're purple. But I tell people no. For those that knew me, I've loved purple since first grade. And when I was younger, I used to go by the Purple Princess because I used to call myself a princess.
Yeah.
And even in college, all my friends would say, "Happy birthday, Princess." After I graduated college, I thought, well, I'm an adult now, so I don't want to be called a princess. So that's where the Purple Diva came from.
Okay.
And the 13 is my volleyball number.
Okay.
And that's where Purple Diva came from. And it's also my email. And so a lot of people just stopped calling me by my name. They would just start calling me Purple Diva. It was just hilarious. And apparently a lot of people can remember it. But when I was Ms. America International, I did change my handle to It's Latresa because that is my blog title. And it just didn't feel right. I kept telling people, they would say, "What's your social media?" And I would still say Purple Diva. And I'm like, oh, wait, no, it's Latresa. So I said, you know what? I'm going to change it back to what just felt right, which is the Purple Diva 13.
Yeah.
But yes, that is how Purple Diva came about.
That's so funny. And generally, I always tell folks that when we have people from business, you know, why did you pick that name? And try and simpler is better. And in this instance, that wasn't the case, right? Like the simpler didn't resonate. It wasn't in a way that they can remember or understand, but they sure can remember the Purple Diva 13. So thank you for sharing that, and for sharing those passion projects of yours, for continuing the fight. And holding on to a great memory and a great heart that you have, and also trying to look at ways you can fill your cup by giving back to your local community and even nationally. I think if we had more and more people that were doing that in their own personal circle, we can have a much kinder world and a much more understanding, I want to say, you know, humanity just all around. So thank you for all you're doing. For those of you that are tuned in, those are the handles that you can engage with Teresa after this. Reach out, find out ways you can support not only the nonprofits that she does, but even some of the opportunities for the impact on youth and those that are trying to enhance their positive imagery and things of that nature. And with that being said, I think I'm going to turn this back over to you to enjoy the rest of your afternoon. We're going to finish a couple minutes early, but we'll be back on here onto our broadcast 1 p.m. Mountain Time next Friday the 17th. So tune in with us for our guests then. Thank you so very much, Latresa, for being on here with us, and I wish you the most blessed and positive rest of your day.
Thank you. And I do just want to say one more thing. I do have an awesome board for my two nonprofit organizations with Naomi Duncan and Ebony Blair. So I do just want to let everyone know that they do help out with those two things. But I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for inviting me on. This was a really wonderful conversation. Hello to all the listeners, and thank you for all that you're doing. You're a beautiful person inside and out, so keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
All right, bye.